I'd like to propose a solution to the drug problem on the Lower East Side and also to a lesser extent on Pandora Avenue in Victoria. I must say that as a newcomer to BC, a farm boy from Saskatchewan, I find the Lower East Side quite something. People are shooting up drugs right on the street. Some people are urinating, defecating in the alleyway. Some people are selling products which they've obviously stolen from somebody's car as a means of financing their operations. And the police, generally speaking, seem to be completely ignoring it. And I can understand why they would, because if they do arrest these people, they're back on the street very quickly, and nothing really changes. And so I guess the question is, why would we put these people in jail for a few days at taxpayer expense when they're simply going to be back doing what they were doing previously when they're released? So it seems to me the issue is, there's two parts to this issue, and it's not clear whether it's a drug problem or a mental health problem. And it's obviously some of both. And I'd like to suggest a possible solution. I'd like to hear the arguments both for and against something like this. But what I would suggest is we have a judge, a sympathetic, understanding judge identified, who will handle these cases, so that if the police do arrest somebody, he or she would come in front of this judge, and they would have to demonstrate a history of this kind of activity. Certainly it isn't the first arrest or the second or the third, but if it's the fourth or fifth and it's clearly a lifestyle, the judge would have the authority, and I guess we would have to have legislation written to enable this to happen. But the judge would have the authority to declare this person a habitual drug use offender, and these people would be assigned to a very secure facility. It could be an island somewhere, or it could be in the interior with a big fence around it. The fence would be designed to keep the inmates in, but also to prevent anybody from outside wanting to get in. And the reason this would be the case is that once you're in this facility, you would have free drugs, whether it's marijuana, heroin, cocaine, whatever it was that you wished, would be available to you free of charge. But you would be there for the rest of your life. If you ever chose to leave, you could indicate to the authorities that it was your intention to do so, and that you would have to prove that for a 3-month period you could live drug-free. And you could either prove that within the facility, or if you wished, so you could get away from your friends and neighbors, you could do it in another remote facility. And I think the life that I envisage inside would be probably much different than most people would think. I don't see this as a jail. I wouldn't want the people who were in charge to be thought of as jailers. I would see them being more of the social worker, friendly farmer kind of a person. And I would see groupings of probably 10 or 12 small houses in a cluster, maybe 300 or 400 square feet each, probably having heated floors, so that there would be no opportunity for natural gas or electricity to burn them down. But each of the people living there would be encouraged to have a garden, have some chickens, maybe a rabbitry, some fruit trees, and they would certainly be encouraged to produce as much of their own food as they could, and that there would be a relatively small grouping so that the people would be able to interact and have a social life together. So you might have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 groupings, each of which had 10 or 12 houses. And I think each of the groupings would have one person, one individual in charge who would have the background, as I mentioned, either as a social worker or a friendly farmer who knew how to grow crops, and maybe was good at playing the guitar and being a father figure to some of the people who are living there. I think that there should be both men and women together. Now, we certainly don't want to have children being born into that situation. So tubes would have to be tied, presumably, in the case of women, or vasectomy in the case of men. And so I'm not quite sure of the legal situation in that regard, but that would be certainly would be something that I think would be a desirable thing to have. But I suspect that in many ways that would be a preferred way of life for the people who are in that circumstance, and it would certainly be better for the citizens of Victoria and Vancouver if we could clean up these areas. So I think it could be a win-win situation for both sides. And I would like to hear more discussion, both for and against that kind of an approach and that kind of a solution to this, what is a very difficult and I think an embarrassing problem for both Vancouver and Victoria.